Hey everyone, welcome to the moon forecast video for the new moon we have coming up in Aries with the solar eclipse. I'm Kendall with the Bohemian Tarot Girl. Amy, give a shout out for yourself.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm an intuitive energy coach and moon circle leader at Wild Reawakening. And this moon's a big one.
It really is. Holy moly. And it comes right back and connects from that past eclipse that we had. When was that? Like the end of April last year, right?
Oh, you're
2023.
going way back.
I'm going way back right now to start with. So it's because for me, I was like, what was I working on that last, for this last year kind of thing? And we've come to this point where we're stepping back in and really seeing um, this moment to really move on some things that were kind of started in the past eclipse. So, how are you feeling about it with this
Oh,
transition?
there's been so many weird synchronicities with like the energy and the timeline of how things are progressing. Um, just in my own personal life, it's like I look at this stuff and there's no possible way you could make up how this energy affects you. Especially if you look at, like you said, a year ago when we had the first eclipse in Aries in April. I know you and I were on retreat during that
Yep.
time, and we were setting some really big intentions and really stepping out into like new territory on things. And I think both of us, our lives kind of started to take on a different trajectory then.
Yes.
And now a year later, like it's funny to see how things that were started then are either coming full circle and having specific endings, or they are kind of like taking off in like even further progression of the direction that you started to move into back a year ago. So it's really interesting to see.
Yep. No, coming from, us hosting that retreat in Joshua Tree up until this moment, it's really interesting to see what is closing out, like you said, and then what is almost having this second like coming in your life, right? It's like you got started on something, it was being called to you, and then it's going to be presented to you again. And we're entering this time where with this solar eclipse, but there's also this other energy. And I just kind of want to chat briefly about that Jupiter Uranus conjunction that's actually happening. What is it, on the 20th of April? But it actually connects back into the energy of like right now. And so if you're not starting and you're not working on some things right in this moment, um, then you're not going to really get that luck that's coming on that 20th. So right now is your moment. If you're thinking about reopening a project, starting something again, do the work right now is really what it's talking about because you want to utilize that energy.
Yeah, and that energy, we don't have that conjunction very often. It's a very
No,
kind of rare sort of,
14 years.
yeah, because they're outer lying planets. They have long transits through the signs. So when they're actually in the same place in the sky, that's really significant and really something to pay attention to. And they're both in Taurus, and
Mm-hmm.
they're approaching 21 degrees, which is where they will be conjunct. So pay attention to where 21 degrees of Taurus is for you. That's going to signify some sort of expansion and also unexpected developments, changes. Uranus is like that. Um, it's like that game changer planet, and it has unexpected energy, and it can really. I was just thinking today, like energy doesn't really have a good or a bad. It's kind of how we interpret it and what frequency we align with. But energy is just energy. And so wherever this planet is hitting, pay attention to what is kind of wanting to shift in a dramatic and sudden fashion in your life. And make sure that you're aligning with it in the best possible way. The more resistant you are, especially in a planet like Taurus,
Yeah.
um, the more you're going to feel kind of what you might interpret as like a negative connotation to it. But we have Jupiter sitting there, and Jupiter is like the luckiest planet. It really is. It expands anything it comes in contact with. Um, And so it really has the opportunity, especially in an earthy sign like Taurus, to really like elevate you in your physical reality in such a extreme and important way.
Yeah, the connection with that Taurus energy, that physical world, as you were saying, is really important here because this is the moment where you can make huge shifts and changes in your life, in the stuff that you're creating here in this physical realm to really, move yourself in the right direction that you want to go. And it's so interesting that it's like just coming up right at this moment, right? Like here we have the solar eclipse. We're really walking into some new energy. And then you have this like kind of magical gift, I feel like, for the energy. And it's really giving us that boost. As long as you, like I said, as long as you do the work and you start working now, don't wait to the 20th to start doing something. Do it right now. If you're making effort right now to get where you're going, that's when you're going to see kind of the blossoming of that gift that you can be receiving. So pay attention to what is coming up with you guys and what you're being called to do and get started right now. Don't hesitate or wait.
That's like with any of the planets, when they start making these alignments together, you'll start feeling them before they actually make the perfect conjunction or the perfect trine. Or it's like as those energies get nearer and nearer, you'll start to feel kind of the intensity and the pull of the energy that's coming with it. So really, that energy is starting now. Um, I just saw a timer pop up.
Yeah, and I don't know why.
Okay.
Just keep going.
All right. So, so there is a lot of change happening with this moon. It is a new moon. It is a full solar eclipse that is going to be going across a big chunk of the US and Mexico. So we will be able to see it where we are at. Um, it's when the sun and the moon is in the same position in the sky, which is at 19 degrees of Aries. So if you want to see where this is affecting you, go ahead and take a look at 19 degrees of Aries in your chart. They are happening, and the North Node is in Aries, so which is why the eclipses are happening and that sign in particular. But if you haven't been listening to us talk about these, which we've been talking about them for a while, um, Aries is a very independent energy. It's very impulsive. It's action oriented. It's a fire sign. It is really looking at um, how you honor yourself and your own path and how you progress forward, knowing what is best for yourself and most in alignment. So this moon and this energy is not only going to kind of illuminate a new path forward, but it could also, with that Chiron being conjunct it, bring up some woundings around how you may not have had your own sovereignty in things, or how you've been giving away your power, or not honoring yourself and your own journey. So just some things to be aware of as we kind of move through this next eclipse cycle.
Yes. I mean, this eclipse is so Chiron focused, I feel like. It's paired with this Aries energy, and you have that really kind of, like door shutting energy. I almost think about it with the solar eclipse. Like it's a very much like, here's your new path, let's get going, let's shift. And Aries is really that getting started, going out on your new path. But then you also have all this Chiron energy, right? And I feel like a lot of what's going to come up during this new moon is um, there's all this healing energy, but you can't just sit there and heal during this time. And it's really about taking a step forward in order to heal. So we have to actually do like a physical movement towards something new during this time. This is not necessarily the moment to sit back and kind of dwell in some fears and like re-look at them. You actually want to like look at them and let them go and then go forward to really access the energy of this new moon. You talk a lot about this with the healing work that you do, Amy.
Yeah.
Is that people have a tendency, like it's great to do shadow work, but you don't want to live doing shadow work forever. So
Yeah. I mean, shadow work is there to kind of show you the areas that still need healing, but you can't sit and dwell in that. You have to actually start living more in, the progressed version of yourself, not the wounded version of yourself. Chiron in particular, um, it's an asteroid. Like I was like, my mind just went blank. It's an
It's all good.
asteroid, and it is. I mean, Chiron was the wounded healer, and so um, what that means is that you kind of wherever Chiron is placed, it is signifying kind of a deep wound that either happened previous lifetime or it could have just been instilled early in your childhood, but it's something that you've kind of taken on and lived with it through from your early years. And it's the most probably significant wounding that you could have. But the whole point of it is that as you journey forward, you learn more about it and you learn more about yourself and you heal. And at some point, you reach the point where not only have you healed that part of yourself, but now you are able to help other people move through and you help them heal similar or other, wounds. So it really has great power for transformation. But if you sit and dwell in the wounds and you sit and ignore your own healing and your own process, then you're never really going to get to the other side of that. So
Yep.
it is a really significant planet. And looking at the charts, it's like you can't make up the energy. We talked about Uranus and Jupiter kind of coming conjunct right after this. But to have Chiron and the sun and the moon and a full solar eclipse all in the same degree point, there's like such perfection, I think,
Mhm.
in the way the universe moves and the way it comes together and creates certain energies. Um, it really is divinely orchestrated and it really is meant to show you where the energy is, how it's going to affect you, how you can move through it, how you can align with it, how you can utilize it to your best possible way in order to have your own um, journey and your own evolution of things.
Yep. All right. You want to talk about the aspects that we have coming up with this moon and how Chiron is really coming into play really big time. And we of course have a really tight conjunction with the moon and the sun. Um, And for me, I'm really looking at it and it's like that is the big push to heal, right? We really are being asked to heal that subconscious and then bring it into our physical reality and run with it. And making sure that we're not living here in the past. Um, there are some other pieces I find a little bit more interesting, but how are you feeling about all of this energy and this conjunction that Chiron's making with everything?
Chiron can be really intense because it is bringing up aspects of healing of yourself and maybe areas that you thought you had healed that are now coming to the surface to show you another layer that needs more attention or needs extra healing brought up to the surface. Um, so, in some regards, when that happens, especially if you are unaware of energy and you don't listen to our podcast,
Truth.
um, it can really be triggering because it's bringing up something and you're just like, why am I dealing with this again? Why am I having to go through this? Why is this happening at this time? Um, which are all good questions to ask. But at the same time, it's also trying to show you something. So it's also good to get curious like, what is this trying to show me? Where do I need to look deeper? What am I holding on to that is no longer serving me? And especially when all of this energy is trying to really come together to push you into a new trajectory, it's really important to recognize and acknowledge and get curious about the things that are keeping you from really expanding out into what you're becoming or the direction that you're moving into or what you're capable of, because a lot of these old wounds, they have a tendency to try and keep us stuck in old patterns and places that that we really need to outgrow.
I mean, they've, in a lot of ways, you're really defined about some, your current ego is caught, is is created by all this trauma that we've lived through. And so if you're really trying to step into a new self, a new life, it's really hard because your ego is seeking this old connection with all these past traumas and traumas that maybe, you do work where you're not even looking at traumas in this lifetime, you're looking at traumas in other lifetimes that can get carried over at a soul level. So there's pieces that are coming up for people that they no longer need to carry during this time. And it's really about recognizing them and then quickly releasing them, which I know maybe on a surface level sounds, the way I'm saying it is very easy. And the process like I go through is you just kind of acknowledge it and then I like visually send them away. And then you have to really live in your new self. And that is really the key for me is that action of living in the new self. So when you have something that comes up or ideas like, okay, you might have some negative thoughts around finances or your self-worth, and just going, no, we're going to release that and we're going to let that go. And then you're going to insert the new response that you would really want to see in yourself. And I think that's really helpful for people to start doing if this is kind of really at the you've not really done this work before, just go ahead and write down the few things that come up that you want to change. When you hear yourself say them, just say, I'm going to release it. No, thank you. Remove, delete, whatever you want to add in there, and then quickly replace it with, the positive version of what you really want to think for yourself.
Because
Got
so much
anything?
of what happens in your outer world is how you view it through your own personal lens and through your own personal beliefs. And so much of the things that happen are affected by our subconscious programming in our mind. And so if you think that something's always going to happen a certain way, and based on past experiences, maybe it did, then you're setting it up so that it will always happen in that particular way. And so one of the things I've started doing is paying attention to, okay, if I expect it to go this way, is it really true that it's going to go that way? And I'll ask myself, um, is this true? Is this really how it is? So that's another thing to kind of get curious about, is not only changing your perception of it, but also like really checking in. Are the things that you believe really true, or are they just old programming that you're holding on to as a means of keeping yourself safe and having things be predictable?
Yeah.
I was listening to something earlier today about the law of, oh my gosh, now I'm going to forget it, kind of expectation. That's not, oh, law of assumption. That's what it
Uh-huh.
was. It's
Oh,
all about
okay.
law of assumption. And so if you assume something is going to go a certain way, then that's how it's going to go, because you've
Uh-huh.
already made the determination. And energy, goes along with our thoughts a lot of the time. So we really have to get really proactive about recognizing the patterns that you've kind of set up for yourself, whether they're subconscious or conscious, and really shifting and allowing for all possibility to be there, and especially the possibility of good things. Because if you're someone who's had a lot of things that have not gone well in your life, then you kind of start to expect that things just aren't going to go well for you. Um, and then you're already making that determination. So
Mhm.
changing that to allow for all possibilities, and then also the possibility of good things actually coming your way.
Yeah.
Your whole physical reality will follow that.
Yeah, well, your ego doesn't understand that, you have a repeating pattern. It doesn't understand that it's a negative thing and it keeps repeating that negative thing. All it understands is that it's experienced that before, and that is the safe path because that's the known path. And it's really about taking the other path and getting your inner self, your mind to cooperate and take that new path, right? Because it automatically wants to shoot you down even the shit path you've been on about 10 times because it knows where it's gonna end. It knows, it thinks it's safe and it's really not. And so it's about really disrupting that in our lives and making sure that we're recognizing when that happens and that we're making sure that if that's not where we want to go, if we don't want to go down that path, that safe path of shit, that we can take the opportunity and step into the new and unknown, and it's fine. You do have to sometimes battle a little bit with yourself, but you can get yourself there.
Mm. And all of this energy with this eclipse and it being in Aries and it being a new moon and aligned with the north, the north node being there, um, it is really opening up this doorway to a whole new path for you that may not be conventional, that you may not have considered before, that may be really uh, um, unpredictable,
Yeah,
not, not feel very safe. It's really an opportunity to stretch beyond what you've known and release a lot of limitations. Um, and so another thing to look at with all of this energy is, first of all, get clear on kind of what you want for yourself. I mean, this is a prime opportunity to set some really powerful intentions. So what you want to call into your life. I'm really curious about the intentions that I set a year ago because so many things have
oh,
changed.
mm-hmm,
Because we did intention jars again last year where we wrote a bunch of stuff out and put it in a jar and sealed it up to open it a later time. Um, Getting off on a side note here, but I was thinking about it and I feel like I want to wait until the end of these Aries Libra eclipses,
for
which
sure.
won't be until March of next year
Yep.
is when this whole cycle ends. So um it'll be fun to open those then.
Yeah.
But um as you're having this new path open up for you and you're kind of jumping out into this unknown territory, which I hope you do. I hope that you do it even if you're scared, even if it doesn't make sense, even if um, there's a lot of unknown to it and it feels risky. It's really, this energy is really prime for an act of bravery and an act of sovereignty and really moving beyond what other people expect from you and really listening to your own intuition and your own heart as you go forward. And I think that if you do that, if you really eliminate all the outside noise and all of the fear that may be surrounding whatever journey you're going on, you're going to find out that there's so much waiting for you out there, and have it be really unexpected and amazing, especially with all that Taurus energy
Yeah.
that we have following this. It is all lined up perfectly for you to make big, bold moves and to really listen to the calling of your own heart.
Mhm. And I do think another piece of this huge puzzle is how other people in our lives perceive us, and it's about rewriting how they perceive us. And I think that can sometimes be the hardest piece. So when you're looking to change who you are and where you're going, is that you're going to encounter people in your lives that have expectations of how you act, what you do, who you are. And you need to be able to have the power within yourself to just walk forward and go, no, this is who I am now. You know what I mean? And to really step into the person that you want to be and own it. Don't step back into that old place that you came from. You really need to move forward and own who you are, which can be super challenging, especially if you're in relationships that are very close and tight knit. Our parents, our loved ones, our children, they all have preconceived, defined notions of who we are that might not even be the reality of what we think who we are, even in the
Mhm.
past, right? So it's really about being upfront and telling them, what you're trying to do, who you're trying to be, and just owning that. And I think that's the best way to approach this is just to really step forward and own who you want to be. Don't try to, step back into some of the old roles that you no longer want, because you're going to only put yourself in a holding pattern and keep yourself blocked.
Mm. Yeah, as you were saying that, it was just like that resonated so much because I feel like that's been so much of my own journey is being able to go on my own way and do the things that felt right for me, and releasing all of the expectations of everyone around me who um, thought that I should be doing things a certain way or wanted me to show up for them in a certain way. Um, Even from a young age, I can't even tell you how many times I would hear things like, "You're just being selfish. You're not thinking about other people." And it's not that I wasn't thinking about other people, but you should never feel like you have to diminish or neglect yourself in order to make other people happy. And if you are doing that, take a good hard look at that and realize that those people are only looking at what benefits them. And if they're looking at you as someone who needs to behave in a certain way to benefit them, then they aren't your people. And it doesn't mean you have to abandon them, but you shouldn't abandon yourself in order to make them happy or feel more comfortable. Your
Yeah.
own sovereignty, your own path, your own feelings of being whole and in alignment is so much more important. And if they're really people who are meant to be in your life, then they will adjust and they'll respect and really encourage you to do those things.
Yeah. And we're doing this all during the time of Mercury retrograde that happened on the 1st of April and goes through towards the end of this month. So just be aware that make sure that you're clearly communicating what you want. Don't step into anger or, resentment. Make sure that you're doing it with love and that you're doing it with compassion and kindness without really um breaking who you are and what you want, right? So have compassion for yourself, but also have compassion with others. It might take them this full Mercury retrograde to really come to terms with what you're trying to do and who you're trying to be and the changes that are happening. And so you just have to realize that there's maybe some time where it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable with some of the people as they're adjusting and you're adjusting. And so just know that, own it, and move forward. That's probably the best advice I can give because it kind of sucks. It does.
Mercury retrograde can be really interesting because things can get lost in translation. So, as you were saying, it's good to be really clear and precise in your communication and also pay attention to how you're receiving things. Because someone could be telling you one thing and yet you are taking it in a completely different context. Because, as we said, you filter things through your own lens. Um, so how you're receiving things could be way different from how they're actually being meant to be communicated. Um, and especially with Mercury being in Aries and having it be such a fast moving energy, Mercury is already fast. You put it in Aries, it just wants to leap forward and get moving and not really pay attention to the details. So with it being retrograde, it's actually giving things a chance to slow down and pay closer attention and let things kind of come back around for another closer look. You might find that things that you thought were resolved from your past are coming back through and are actually kind of completing now. Uh, we talked about it last time, but pay attention to transportation, pay attention to the details of your technology, back things up. And then we also always joke around that past relationships will kind
Oh
of
yeah,
resurface during this
never
time,
fails.
or either a second look or better closure, or even just like the random person who wants to check in and see how you're doing because you suddenly popped into their mind unexpectedly. Like, especially people who don't follow energy, they may not notice that they're doing these things, but it never fails to have some kind of resurfacing of some area of your life come in. Um, so
I have one person that every time,
it
it's
used to
like
be a
clockwork.
running joke in my earlier years with my friends that it was like Mercury retrograde would come around and like all of my exes would start popping up out of nowhere. And it was just kind of humorous. Uh, Not that that ever like went anywhere, but it was, interesting that it was that energy that kind of like brought things back around. So if you suddenly see someone popping up again, doesn't necessarily mean that you need to rekindle anything. It might just be, I don't know. Um, Sometimes it is really good energy just for like closing out something if you had anything kind of lingering or left open,
Yep.
or an apology even, or, you know, but
Yep, just pay attention to that.
expected communication.
Uh-huh, exactly. Um, let's talk about Mercury's close conjunction with Chiron. So, because this is a one that I find interesting that's kind of being paired up here, because to me, this is really speaking to that collective awakening that it's kind of a wake up call for like everyone. And so we have this like individual work that we're being called to do, but this one almost speaks to like a global showing of something that we're going to pay attention to. So when we look at the outside world, typically Amy and I really focus in on more of like the inner work that we do individually. Um, but I like to look at some of this energy because it can trigger us. It can affect our mood. It can swing us off of focus from the work that we really need to be doing. And this one might come in and it might show us something that is great and it ties into your life, or it might just cause a little bit distraction. And so I think paying attention to how it feels and how it resonates to you is key. And if it doesn't resonate with you because it's not part of this healing journey that you need to handle right at this moment, then I would say just go ahead and kind of take note of it and put it off to the side. Don't sit there and dwell or stress on it. And it's going to be different. I mean, it's a collective awakening, but it could be different messages are being brought forward to you and being revealed so you can see some truth during this time. How are you feeling about this energy? It's kind of interesting that it's all paired in here.
We've already kind of seen, I mean, I'm not someone who watches the news or really tries to pay attention, but I've always said that if something is super important, it's going to be made into your awareness regardless.
Yep.
Um, and so it's been really interesting to start seeing some of these things that have been hidden come to light in the public eye, information that you might not have had access to is suddenly becoming known. Secrets are coming up to the surface, regarding public figures or uh, just information in general that they've tried to, whoever they are,
Yep.
that they've tried to like keep under wraps
Yep.
from public view. So it is going to be really interesting to see what is happening. This is also super important to get clear on checking to see if things are true for you and how that feels in your body. And how, because there can be a lot of things sensationalized and a lot of things misconstrued or um, seeming to be something that they're not. And people will tend to gravitate towards whatever kind of suits their own opinion about things. But there is a lot of outside manipulation that could be happening right now,
Mhm.
um, to try and sway you in one way or another. And so, really being discerning and um, not attaching yourself to either
Yep.
side of things until you have all the information, because you're going to be seeing a lot of conflicting information and a
Mhm.
lot of things that seem out of the realm of what you thought might be possible. And I don't even know exactly what that means yet. It's just the information that's coming in.
Yep.
So,
That's fine.
yeah,
I'm with you
sometimes
there.
sometimes being kind of more of an intuitive person, you just get messages and you're not exactly sure what they fully mean yet. But if I were to come in and say, well, this is exactly how it's going to happen, and I know better than you, then you shouldn't listen to what I say. Because I don't think anybody clearly knows yet. Just get really particular about what information you're attaching yourself to at this moment, especially with it being retrograde and it being close to Chiron. It can really uh, illuminate some of your biggest fears and insecurities and kind of attach, I
Yes.
feel like.
And it was interesting because I drew a card for this moon. Just I was waiting for Amy to join the call, and I was like, well, let's see what my cards say. And I said I didn't finish reading the card, and I'll give it to you to post in the group so you can share the message with everyone on Facebook. And it was talking about the wolves. And it was this interesting because it was this card of love. And that's what I originally thought the message was about, looking at just like the kind of like headline for the card. And then I start reading it. It's got this unique message about the wolves and the truth coming out and paying attention to that. And, then I was like, well, that totally connects with this energy. It connects with this Chiron energy. It connects with or is it Mars conjuncting Saturn, I think, with our fears, that sort
Yep.
of thing. So, you know, really paying attention that here's the truth, and how does it feel to you, I think is key. Um, and you don't have to align yourself. I think that's where people get really stuck. We don't have to hear something and like you have to like immediately walk over to whatever corner it is and stand there. You can kind of take in that truth and feel it out for yourself. And then you can wait for more information, like you were saying, wait for more information to come. And you never actually have to pick a side because you just kind of own the truth and you accept the truth within you. And that's the part where you can move forward. You don't have to shimmy to one side because one group is telling you one thing. So, or aligning one way. I don't like being aligned with other people. I like being
No.
aligned with myself.
Yeah, and there's so much emphasis on holding on to your sovereignty during this time that I think it's going to be super important in the next 6 months to a year to really, really harness and hold on to your own truth and your own sovereignty and not give away your power to external energies that are trying to sway you in one particular way or another. And that is kind of that Mars conjunct Saturn, and it's in Pisces. And Pisces, we've talked about as the last sign of the zodiac, and it has a way of sometimes keeping things hidden or having some sense of disillusionment to it,
Mhm.
or illusionment. What's the word?
Just roll with it.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It can keep things hidden and keep things secret, and not show you the full truth of something. Um, and so it's really important to pay attention to where your sovereignty and your truth is lying during this time.
Yeah. Well, I always think my connections with me, myself, and higher source, and then kind of my close network of people that I keep, your direct family, your really close friends, they can kind of orbit, they all have their own connection and their own commitment to themselves, but you can kind of orbit together, but you can accept them with whatever truths that they have in their life too. You don't need to fight with people or feel like you need to pass, make people accept a communication or a truth kind of thing. That's not necessarily, um, that's not in your control. And I think people need to let go of it during this time. Don't try to force a truth on something. You can offer up some knowledge to people and they can take it if they feel like they can in that moment. Some people are not going to be able to receive some messages during this time. It's going to be a little bit overwhelming for them. So just know that if there are people in your life and they're not really connecting with what you're saying at the moment, it's just like it's going to be a little bit overwhelming with the energy for them. So. We also have the moon conjunct Mercury, and that in itself is all about seeing the truth. So I do think you're going to get some added energy as far as your discernment of what is true for you. So just know that, the energy is really pushing you to see and be exposed to things that are going to help you. It might be kind of shocking in the moment, but then you can move forward and it's going to be a better alignment for your soul's growth, knowing that information. That's always a hard part when, especially if you've aligned yourself somewhere like to a certain side, and then you finally receive information that's kind of like, here's the, the truth about it. It's hard to be able to go, oh, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I aligned myself. That's a hard hit for your ego. And, you know, for me, I'm just always like, I'm always learning and growing. Things are changing. The more information that we have, I might change my opinion on things, and that's okay. So I think just be okay with your changing opinions during this time. So what else we got? I really like the energy with Venus sextiling Pluto, because that was really about reimagining your goals. So thinking about what you want to do and where you want to be in your life and who you want to be. And it really is giving that extra push with this Aries energy. So,
Yeah. And being, Venus being an Aries,
mhm.
it's really like adding that element, as we've been talking about, like, are you honoring yourself? Are you loving yourself properly? Are you trusting your own direction? There's really a self focus to this, even though Venus tends to be more about partnerships and relationships. It's really like taking all of that external relationship energy and bringing it back to yourself. And are you staying in relationships that are honoring who you are, and are you living in alignment with what you feel is best for you? So it's kind of, I don't know, it's really a beautiful energy once you turn it around and look at it
Yeah.
from that angle. And it is very action oriented,
Yeah.
so
I love that.
yeah. And Venus is also the planet of like all the good things. It's about your money, and it's about your relationships, and it's about love, and you know it, it's also lining up with all of this other Aries energy that's wanting to move you in a certain direction. And so, really paying attention to the direction that you feel like you're moving towards. Is it honoring yourself, and does it feel good? Because there's, I think a lot of people, and I've heard this a lot lately, is that people feel really stuck in their circumstances right now. And I always say that where you are now is not where you're going to be, but you have to open the door to having things be possible for you, and recognizing that you're not going to be in these situations, and then waiting for those opportunities to align that are really going to put you on the path that you see as being possible. Um, and I really try to live my life that way. And some really unexpected things happen that you just don't realize are going to happen. Um, but if you sit and you dwell on where you are, and how uncomfortable it is, and how much you don't like where you are, but you don't think that it's in the realm of possibility for things to shift for you at any given point, then you're just going to stay stuck in that situation. Um, so I don't know. I think Venus is really lending some really um, positive energy to give yourself some grace, and to expand the things that you think that are possible for you right now.
And it's really,
Oh, sorry.
oh no, go ahead.
It's like there's a level of self trust that happens, that you have the capability to alter your path in your environment. And I think sometimes people forget that when they're stuck in the muck of everything. Uh,
Mhm.
it's really lending itself to how much trust you have in yourself
Yeah.
to make it through.
I agree. And it's really connecting with that Jupiter energy that we mentioned kind of peaks at that 20th, um, of this month here. And it's really asking you to do that action, right? And to get started and to create those new thoughts of what you want to do and really take the action to it, which I love. And what feels good in your heart, right? Because Venus is all about that. So I love that energy. Is there anything else, Amy, that you want to talk about? I feel like we've talked a lot.
We did talk a lot. There was a lot to talk about with this one.
There really was.
It's really significant, and this is one of those eclipses that people have been really gearing up for. And I think that there's a lot of anticipation about it. And there's also a lot of fear circulating around this. And I really feel that as long as you stay grounded and connected to your truth, and your discernment and your trajectory, that a lot of whatever that outside influence is that's going on is not going to be as present in your personal life.
Yep. Yep.
So I've heard some weird things about this eclipse that just kind of I'm not sure why this eclipse is getting so much more attention than past
Past
eclipses.
ones. Yeah, it's interesting how the media is portraying this eclipse. And just some of the warnings that are going out from some larger agencies. It's interesting to me. It's something that I pay attention to. I do feel like, if you're anywhere near the eclipse, really check in with yourself and see what your body feels like, where you should be. You are the best one to really know, and connect with like your safety level and how you're feeling. So just keep yourself in a position where you feel safe and comfortable, and make sure that you're with good people that are really connected to where you want to go spiritually. Amy's going to be hosting an event online, so you can always be focusing in on the event. So, Amy, you want to give a little shout out?
We're doing a new moon eclipse circle online, a women's circle. So if you would like to join, feel free to join the group Wild Reawakening. We do have a page, but also the group is where you'll have access to most information. And yeah, it's going to be good. We're really going to be creating some really solid intentions for the path forward, and connecting with what is possible.
Yes, I love that. Well, everyone stay safe. Use this energy to really create and get yourself moving forward. Don't dwell on some of the negative stuff that's affecting you. Let it go. Move on. So we will see you next time. Have a great new moon. Bye, everyone.